This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on regulating education for development. The participants are Professor Amarjeet Singh Narang, educationist, and Urmi Goswami, journalist.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi today inaugurated the Conference on Academic Leadership on Education for Resurgence in New Delhi. Very broadly, the focus has been on innovation, on not just learning in the classroom but applying it to the larger world. He's spoken about the various reforms that have happened in the higher education segment. Professor Narang, when we are looking at the higher education system, what do you think are the biggest issues that are there in today for us?
See, the higher education in India has been going through various ups and downs. And as you said, the Prime Minister has said that it is not only classroom knowledge which is important. In fact, that is a very serious and concern which higher education has been facing all these 3 decades or so, in fact. But what we find is that our education system, right from primary to higher education, has become mugging. So everything classroom, you have to just study, cram. Out of that, of course, a cream comes out, and of which we are very proud of. What happens to the general education system? So this is a very serious crisis that higher education, A, the inclusiveness has been missing. B, what you call a reasonable global standard has been missing. Third, what we call a process of research and innovation has been missing. So these crises have been there for years and years. And really time when we are living in an age of globalization, in the age of knowledge society, in the age of what we call information and technology. So these issues have to be addressed very seriously.
One of the things that the Prime Minister mentioned very clearly is about the importance of innovation and of social utility. That when students are learning in their classrooms, one is they shouldn't be just restricted to the classroom, but think of how what they're doing applies to the real world. That is a very noble sentiment, as you just mentioned, a very necessary direction given the way the world is changing, our role in the world is changing. How do you see the institutions, the universities and colleges, because representatives of all these colleges and universities were present today at the conference, how do you see them translating this? What are the practical things they can do?
This is a real problem. The translation is the real problem. So many experiments have been done on this process that students are brought to the field. Now, for instance, a national service scheme was introduced. What was that national service scheme? The idea was that students will come out of the college and go to various field areas, work with the people at grassroots level, have understanding of the people's aspirations, and also do something for them in a very constructive way. That was an idea of national service scheme. But what happened ultimately, it's still in progress. Still it is working. But what is happening is a few blood donation camps are organized, one Swachhta Abhiyan is organized. What you call a formal structure of NSS is working, but real thing which the students should go to the field, to the rural areas, talk to the people, understand, well, that has been missing. So that is what you said, the problem of translation. Similarly, again, the question is for what you are studying. So initially when IITs were established, it was made compulsory that students of engineering, etc., they will compulsorily study social sciences. The idea was that these engineers ultimately have to work for the society. So that you must understand what society we are living in. Social sciences were made. Even now you see all IITs have social sciences departments. Why it was? It was introduced only because of that. But those things again, they have become formalities, and social science departments are now working independently awarding PhDs rather than teaching society to the engineering students. So those are real problems, which again, if it is coming up, it's very good. That a real relationship between students and society on the one hand, students and industry on the other hand, students and what we call a larger community of researchers. Thirdly, these communications, these interactions and these what we call relationships are very important, and these needs to be stressed, and we hope that if these are being planned, then there will be some mechanism where these are not only on paper but these will be translated into practice. That is what our expectations are.
Prime Minister mentioned schemes or institutions that they have already established, like the revitalization of infrastructure and systems in education and the Higher Education Funding Agency. Both of these are actually geared towards the institutions, because as you mentioned in the past, there's been a lot of focus, but also past the focus has been on ensuring that students get loans and such student-centric things, but we have not built up our institutions. And these two schemes attempt to address the requirements of institutions. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned, it's important that the Prime Minister raises these issues because it shows that there is an interest or a concern at the highest level of government. But at the end of the day, institutions are made by the academics, by the professors, the vice-chancellors, the readers, and also the students. What do you think needs to happen now that you have got this direction, or they have got a sense, if they didn't have it before, but they have got a sense that at the highest level of our government there is an interest, there is a direction. The Prime Minister mentioned the adult tinkering labs for schools, giving a direction. What do you think universities need to do? And do you think our universities have the capability to respond to that?
Answer to your question is both yes and no. Yes, in the sense that ultimately universities are made for that. See, the universities have three-pronged function right from day one. The first function is knowledge generation. Universities have to generate the knowledge. Second job of universities is knowledge dissemination. They are supposed to disseminate. But third aspect of universities all over the world has been what you call the make social use of that education. What you call some sort of outside the university. So these universities have been made for that. This is what you call their mandate all over the world when we court of a university. Now therefore, answer has to be yes, they have to do this. Second question is, as you very rightly said, there is apparent dichotomy between the institutions and the managers of the institutions and the beneficiaries of the institutions. There's a little dichotomy between them. Institutions are made for a purpose, but those who are managing those institutions or those who are working, their commitment to those causes are missing. Many of the teachers now who are coming to the universities, they unfortunately leftovers. Their first priority is this, that, okay, they have not been able to get that, so come to the university. So that means it is a leftover after non-getting certain other career. So that has to be done. That people come to, in our age it was like, many of my age people, they came to the university without applying for anything else. It was that we are wait for this. So there was a passion. For some last 2-3 decades this has been missing. People have been going to, first IAS became charmed, then the multinationals have become charmed. All those aspects are there. Those people who are coming simply as a means of livelihood, but not committed to the cause, that is a big problem. Second, the necessary infrastructure. That is a very great requirement, particularly in public universities, school onward.
Do you think that these schemes that the Prime Minister has referred to, which of course have been already put in place earlier, a year or so, not necessarily very old, but definitely have been around, like the revitalization of infrastructure and systems in education, RISE, HEFA, which is actually a financing institution. Do you think these will help at least with the infrastructural gap?
Naturally, if funds are provided and those funds are properly used, naturally they can and they should. If remains that whether funds are provided well in time. For instance, in India, in almost all public institutions, this is a problem. You have a financial year, and the financial year ends on 31st of March. You get funds in February or March, and you have to spend them either on 31st of March or they relapse.
So then you wastefully spend them.
Yes, these schemes are very good. The funds are necessary, these are required, but only a question is, then again, Prime Minister or a Minister is not there to disperse funds. They have to make policies. Ultimately, those who have to receive the funds, they have to see that their paperwork is fine. Those who have to release the funds, they should have a commitment that here they cost. That type of situation is very much required, which unfortunately, the commitment to the society is missing at most of the levels.
We come back to this one thing which I realize from every sort of things you have been saying, that even if you have the policies in place, even if at the highest level of government there is a sense of direction. Today was about setting out a sense of direction for the higher education sector. Ultimately, that sense of pride and that sense of wanting to achieve has to be there with those who are managing our institutions. What do you think? You have been part of a university. What do you think needs to be done to inculcate? Because you said in the last 30 years or so this has been missing. How do you inculcate that sense?
First and the foremost thing is to make these professions, I'm not saying monetarily attractable, but somehow attractable, that at least you feel that you are recognized in the society. Not because you are earning that much, but at least for the work you are doing. That needs to be recognized, so that people are feeling proud that yes, I am working for a job for which there is a recognition in the society. If not in monetary terms, at least in other terms. That's one aspect. Second is preparation from day one. When we are studying, say I am preparing for PhD, it means person who is preparing for PhD, ultimately his or her career is either research or teaching. So right at that level, there should be some sort of orientation, some sort of, you say, training that ultimately you are going to end for this job. At present, for higher education, there is no training program. It is only after you join as a lecturer, then you do refreshers or those types of things. PhD is the only program, and PhD is primarily a research-oriented program. Where is the orientation before you join as a teacher? Therefore, those types of orientation, some sort of what you call a continuous knowledge, the way knowledge is expanding. If a teacher, my professor used to tell us a teacher's experience is 1 year multiplied by 20. Whatever he has studied, but now that is not the age. Therefore, you have to, right when you are a student and looking towards those types of, some sort of orientation, some sort of a training to be a good teacher, purposely. Second is some sort of integration between various disciplines. So what happened is, if science students do not know what is society, social science students do not know what are the basic implements of science, time has come, some sort of integration between social sciences, humanities, and particularly basic sciences. A doctor does not know what poverty is. He has not gone through that. Engineer doesn't know what a well in village means. For him, dam is very important. For a villager, that well is very important. So this sort of integration is very important. Unless we do that, the commitment at the level of managers will be very difficult.
The Prime Minister kept stressing on one, of course, the idea of innovation, and which you also have been stressing, because you're saying that we have gotten into a system where it's all about mugging, learning what is in the books and then repeating it in an exam and then moving on. And the other part of it is about having an interaction with society, about using your learning for making better policy, for better understanding. And public policy research has been one of the missing links in our education system. Unlike in the West, where you see a lot of researchers independently picking up to see whether a particular policy is giving its ends, or how do you design the best policy to address a societal problem or an economic problem or any other kind of problem. We don't see that happen. As you mentioned, the Prime Minister or the Minister is not going to sit and disburse funds. He's not going to sit and, we don't want them to sit and oversee what's happening in the universities. The Prime Minister mentioned very clearly that the UGC has now the scheme about accelerated autonomy. So basically now there's more responsibility for the heads of universities and colleges to deliver. How do you get that happening? If you had to tell me, and let's hope that the Prime Minister or the Minister or somebody in government is listening to us right now, if you had to say 5 things that are required over and above what they have done that could help push administrators and vice chancellors to do more.
Prime Minister said, and everybody is saying, innovation is the key in the present world. And not in present, but in fact the whole process of civilization development has come through innovation. The very, what we call the discovery of wheel was an innovation. So right from that period, innovation is the key word. Somehow it got missed at some stage. It's coming back, it's very good. So innovation first is key. But innovation means what? That has to be clearly understood at various levels. Innovation does not necessarily mean very high level of research. Innovation at every level is important, and that should be made a thrust. That is very important. Second, as you said, public policy. Fortunately, last few years, public policy has emerged as a respectable discipline in our academia. But then public policy is not directly linked with careers. Public policy is, after joining something, you are taking public policy as one of your subjects. For instance, students of public administration, management. Therefore, this public policy needs to be given some sort of a dignified place in the academia, some sort of a trained human resources who are not only trained, they are committed and oriented to this task. That is very important.
Professor Narang, we hope that the Prime Minister's focus on education, on higher education, will lead us to actually do the things that you are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You were listening to a discussion on regulating education for development. The participants were Professor Amarjeet Singh Narang, educationist, and Urmi Goswami, journalist. The program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.